Welcome to the Worlds Within podcast. Today we're sitting down with Rabbi Reuven Boshnack, the visionary writer behind the Bereishis Foundation's innovative life skills and social emotional curriculum for the first-year yeshiva high school students. In a generation facing unprecedented emotional and social challenges, this curriculum is transforming the way schools prepare boys and girls not just for academic success, but for life. From resilience and self-awareness to relationship and emotional well-being, we'll explore the powerful thinking behind a program that's reshaping the future of education. Rabbi Reuven Boshnack is a licensed mental health counselor and also an educator who has taught students from 6th grade to graduate school. He currently teaches Yeshiva University and sees clients in his private practice in Brooklyn, New York. Welcome, Rabbi Boshnack. So glad to have you here today. So you've taken on this Herculean project of social emotional literacy and the soft skills, right? And helping students learn how to navigate life. So, I want to help the audience understand, what does social emotional literacy mean to high schoolers, and why now? Why provide them with this knowledge and information? What's the purpose of it?
So it's an incredibly important topic to me, because we have to understand that a person comes to this world and that we're given a set of equipment. And the problem is that we don't always learn conventionally how to use it. We're given a mind, we're given emotions, we're taught in school, play nicely, say please, say thank you. But oftentimes, to understand the way that we're thinking, the way that we're feeling, to talk about those very, very important things, it's not discussed enough. It's not spoken about. We don't discuss now that you have emotions, and especially at the time during high school, so much a person is engaged in building their identity, creating their adult lives, and everything's changing. Especially the beginning of high school, everything's changing. Both bodies, both minds.
That's so important. Yes.
Many
Granted,
shifting sands.
We know that. We know that there are changes physically, emotionally, psychologically. Some may argue that within the curriculum, within the hashkafa, within the different hadracha, and within the haskala, everything that the child is learning in terms of they're going through school, right? That it's all built in, but everything is there. Why add this on? Is this something like an add-on considered like an extra, taking away from a time of day that is so specifically monitored? Every moment is accounted for. The periods start, and a half an hour, 40 minutes later, they're over. And the teachers are trying to get in so much curriculum. So, some may argue, we have it all. What else do we need?
So the truth is, in the Torah classic, Mesilas Yesharim, the Ramchal, Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, says that I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't know already. However, to be reminded of things that you already know, to be told things that you already know, and to focus in on them, to give them their added time. This is where people oftentimes are missing the points. Over the course of, the last 2,000 years, there have been revolutions, many, many revolutions within Jewish education. Everything that we do is really both very old and very new at the same time. The idea of compulsory education for all Jewish children, that is a tremendous quantum leap forward.
How old is that really?
Exactly.
If really get to it. Is it 200 years, maybe less?
Much less. Much, much less. That everybody would have 12 years of schooling only when you came to America, and only, post-war.
Wow, so we're talking 80 years?
Yeah. Give or take. And you look back at the history of the different high schools that exist, the yeshiva high schools that exist. A day school and elementary school was first. But then you see that, oh, we took a step forward. Now we have a high school, and now we have post-high school studies. But all of these things are very, very new. Relatively speaking, over the course of time, of course, Talmud Torah and learning, is an internal part of our people. But specifically, how we're teaching, when we're teaching, what we're teaching, that's been a constant evolution as to the needs of what the generation is. Whether it's we're speaking about Beis Yaakov movement, the Muslim movement, Rav Hirsch's Real Shul, Chassidus, Tomchei Tamimim, Slobodka, each and every yeshiva is itself a novelty, and it brought with it a certain concentration that was needed for their specific time. And this is as well following. This is not a divergence of something new, but this is really probably a return to something which is incredibly fundamental and basic.
So if you could tell me why specifically the ninth grade is chosen to focus on social emotional learning.
Yes, it's the beginning. It's the beginning of their high school experience. And especially if we want to set a guidepost, we want to set a direction for their high school years, this is the time to make it, to say, okay, guys, we're not kids. We're growing in so many different ways. And as you're coming to recognize that all of this growth, it presents for you a great opportunity to begin to meet yourself as a person who will be an independent thinker, as a person who's a motivated learner. Because really, at the end of the day, what we really seek to do in all education is to create people who want to learn, who are curious. Without curiosity, one cannot really and truly, be involved in learning.
So that's really important. The key point is curiosity. How do you intend on piquing the curiosity of freshmen, kids who are now coming into high school? They feel like they want to get to know their friends, and they also are new to a rigorous course of study. How do you plan on capturing their attention that they're going to want to know this information?
One idea that I saw is that if you present a student with a pat question and a pat answer, then the question and answer are quickly forgotten. When you present a student with a puzzle, with a riddle, that curiosity is what draws them in. Things that students want to talk about, want to know about, that really drives the classroom. When you can get them into the question, and whatever the question is what inspires curiosity. On Pesach, that's what we do. We do all these things to elicit the curiosity of the child, so they should ask. Because the Torah tells us when your child will ask. Well, and what if he doesn't ask? Well, we'll make a situation that he does ask. When we are pursuing something with curiosity, then we will chase that. We'll chase that question. Something that you're not interested in, you're not going to pursue. Something that makes you wonder. The more a question empowers you, the more it makes a person wonder, the more you're going to want to understand. If you're not interested, so of course you're not going to want to learn anything.
So can I ask you for a sneak peek of a salient question that will grab the audience? Or something that is easy to get the students to want to talk about? How do we get them to open up?
So, part of our introduction is asking, we talk about mental health, and we talk about physical health. What's the difference? Is there a difference? Is there a difference between mental health? We say it's all in your head. The truth is that we know that as psychotherapists, we know that thoughts can create bodily symptoms. That so much of our reaction really is in our head.
So do teenagers really know how to vocalize, how to verbalize what that literacy, how to understand their emotions? Meaning, getting into emotional literacy. What does it mean to feel angry, to feel frustrated, to feel sad, to be disappointed? To have an experience that they could talk about
So
and
that's
give words to, assign words to.
so that is the beginning of the course, is beginning to create a toolbox,
Hmm.
beginning to create a language, a metaphor, not a metaphor, but a jargon to be able to use to communicate that. When we say happy, what does happy mean? But what does happy mean to you? What are experiences that make you feel happy? What does that feel inside of you? Well, there are very complicated physiological changes that occur when we feel happy, when we feel sad, when we feel nervous, when we feel alarmed, when we feel hopeful, when we feel excited. But if we don't have a vocabulary to talk about it, we just know I'm feeling something, but we don't necessarily know how to quantify.
And if you could tell me what happens when a teenager doesn't know how to verbalize, doesn't know the language, what do they do with those feelings? What happens next?
So we know that either they act out, they retreat inward, they sometimes they find different outlets in different ways. They find it in literature, they find it in music, they find it uh, until they find the channel, they don't know what to do with themselves. And over the course of of their growing up, so either they'll think that I'm not allowed to feel like that, and they'll try to squash it,
Wow.
or they'll
Yeah. So that gets me thinking about the secondary effect of not having the language. So either it will result into overt acting out or to internalizing shame. So either aggression or anxiety, depression, these are secondary effects of not being able to express oneself.
absolutely, and otherwise they'll find other outlets. They'll find it sometimes. They'll find it as a way to get away from these emotions in drugs and alcohol, or in music, or in acting, in lots of other different ways, not just aggressively, but they'll find all types of different expressions.
So essentially what you're saying is this curriculum is a toolbox. It's a gateway for a young person, for a teenager, to be able to use their expression and their understanding to be able to deal with whatever emotions and whatever circumstances are coming their way, and so that they don't fall off the cliff or they don't go seek other directions to satisfy their needs.
Precisely, and once you have created this toolbox of words to speak about those emotions, we'll learn skills to how to manage those emotions. We'll learn ways how to manage conflict in between each other. We'll learn ways to deal with the different challenges that come with a dual curriculum, multiple teachers, multiple stressors. To be able to have words to talk about this, you come in and you're feeling nervous about a test, overwhelmed about a test. You don't have words to talk about it.
They might just not show up to the test.
Exactly.
And then comes school refusal. And then comes
You'll be
failing. And
avoiding
then, oh no.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say you're a Rosh Yeshiva, you're a headmaster, you're a principal. You get approached with a curriculum on social skills, social emotional literacy, life skills. You've got a whole day ahead of you. You've got 15 subjects that you need to cover. You've got regions to have to prepare the students with. What are you going to do with this curriculum? You understand that it's important, but how important is it? How are you going to fit it in?
So famously, Rabbi Salanter, the founder of the modern Muslim movement, said, when they asked him, well, let's say you only have 15 minutes a day to learn, what should you learn? So he said, Musar, of course, because once you begin the study, you'll realize you have so much more time. To study oneself, to explore, to be an inside explorer, if you would, will provide the impetus for all the other studies. It makes all of the other studies that were involved, when a person begins to explore what their emotional world looks like, so then that plays itself through every facet of Torah. What do you mean you're going to tell me v'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha? Love Hashem your God,
Mm-hmm.
right? Love
Okay.
Hashem. So what does love mean?
Okay.
What
Yeah.
exactly does love mean?
Wha-
How do I love? What does love feel like?
So are you
Wh-
saying that you include aspects of hashkafa and musar and thought, Jewish thought, philosophy into the curriculum and make it more digestible, more accessible? Is that what you're saying?
You yourself said, look inside, rafoch v'vafoch ba, the kulaba, that if we don't understand, Torah was commanded to a person, that person has thoughts and feelings. The Torah is applying to those thoughts and feelings of the human condition. We're told, not to have desires for foreign things. We're taught to, what's it called, to have love and awe. We're told all these different emotions. Not only that, there are mitzvahs that their very performance is dependent upon an emotional state. The idea is called a kiyum shebalev. That
So my
that
question is, how has this been taught up until now? What new information is being offered in this curriculum? And how does that contrast to what we've been known until now? How has it been taught up until this point?
well, case in point, we just said this. V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha. We say it all the time. You will love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all your soul, with all of your might. Right? What does that mean? What do those words mean? What
What?
does it mean v'ahavta? What does it mean b'chol levavcha?
So piecing apart, taking apart the words of the Torah and applying them internally in language that a young student could understand.
Precisely.
So
Precisely, we're exploring. We're exploring who we are as those who are that we just passed the holiday of Shavuos, and there's a greeting that some groups give to each other on the holiday of Shavuos, that we wish each other a receiving of the Torah with joy and inwardness. Joy and inwardness. Well, what does that mean? Joy and inwardness means that I'm about to go contact something, and it's going to impact me on on a level which is emotional, and internal. When we say joy and inwardness, it's ironic that a person can say joy and inwardness in a very superficial surface level.
most kids don't know what that means.
Right, exactly. Just on the outside, joy and inwardness. Well, what does that mean? Okay, so let's explore that.
So how do you give
I,
context to
I oftentimes like to parallel that. You accept the Torah with joy and inwardness, and also accept yourself with joy and inwardness.
okay. So if you're giving a lesson to ninth graders about accepting yourself, what does that practically look like?
So we have to take 10 steps backwards, which is why we start at the very beginning of the curriculum, where we talk about difference between mental health and physical health. And then by understanding mental health, we can break down the portions of these different things, these different portions, thoughts, emotions, feelings, behaviors, what all of that means. Then we can talk about what they mean to us. Right?
So
We have to. So we're already assuming, that we're on level 5, where we're saying, what do we mean when I accept myself with the joy and inwardness? What is me? What is self? What is accept? So that's already, we're down the road. We're starting from ABC. So ABC means, okay, we understand what it means health. We understand what it means health. We understand I don't feel well, I go to the doctor. We understand that when I break my arm, I need a cast. We understand that there's physical
well, that's
aspects.
physical because you could see it, you could feel it, you could touch it. But when it comes to emotions, it's all very lofty. It's not sensory. We don't experience it with our senses. So how would you provide that experience for young people so that they could come away and really understand themselves?
We begin with understanding when I'm scared of something, when something scared me, when something excited me, when something made me happy. It's the beginning of that road of recognizing, oh, wait a second, I do have a feeling. Wait a second, I do feel something. Right? And then we begin to give definitions around that. We begin to explore what all these feelings are about. Once we start talking about all these different feelings, so then we can continue to explore our inwardness. But we can't, we have to start, all the way back from Aleph, start from A before we can get to EFG.
Now, Have you been getting any feedback about this particular curriculum? Have you tested the waters? Have you spoken to colleagues? What's being what is there any pushback? Is there anything that you could share with us about, where it might not be met with acceptance?
So the truth is that in our generation, previously when when we all were growing up, we were just told, like, sort of suck it up and deal with it. You said, okay,
That's
we'll
not
deal with
working anymore.
it. Exactly. So now everywhere has become so much more accepting of this idea of therapy, of mental health. In my practice, I get calls every community you can imagine. This from the Sephardi communities, from the Hasidic communities, from the modern Orthodox communities, from the Flatbush Yeshivish communities. You get calls from every different dimension uh, that they know that there's this thing called mental health, and it's been a process, and it's been a process of years. I mean, we've seen in our own lifetimes that there's been this acceptance of mental health and an understanding of well-being. But why do we have to start only when a person's having problems? Why
Or
can't
later
we?
on in life, or when
eh,
they're self-aware enough, but it's already too late because they're in a situation where, let's say, their marriage is at risk, or they're losing their job, right? Or they're just not part of the community. They're failing, right? Why wait till then?
Right? Why not begin from a paradigm of mental health, not mental illness?
Okay, so we're looking more towards the preventative aspect. Well,
A wellness perspective,
right,
right?
got it.
A
Okay.
wellness perspective.
So, but here you are, you're a veteran in the field, you have experience in education and mental health, and you're able to explain things in very concrete terms. When you're imparting this curriculum to a teacher, a mechanech, a Rebbe, how are they going to use the language, and how are they going to relate to the material in a way that they could give it over, that it makes sense?
Right. So begin again with the thought experience of uh, explaining those words. V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha.
So
Right.
in a sense, you take like you take paragraphs, or you take psukim from the Torah, and you expand on it and explain it.
So when we're trying to learn, we're trying to teach, or how would you say, we're trying to train. There we go. Train mechanchim in this curriculum. So we're going to be working with non-mental health professionals, but they're people with feelings. They're people with feelings.
Everyone could relate to feelings.
Everyone can relate to feelings.
Everyone has that
experiences.
experience, and
Exactly.
they may learn something or two along the way.
Absolutely. So Soloveitchik said, it used to be that emotions, that feelings, that Shir Hashirim, the Song of Songs, the Song of Love, was Kodesh Kodashim. The more intense the feeling was, the more precious the feeling was, the more it needed to be guarded, the more it needed to be locked up. We knew it, our grandparents, his grandparents, his father, felt and knew what he felt, but his felt was between him and God. But nowadays, Soloveitchik, and he's already saying this in the 70s, we cannot afford this anymore. We
Well,
cannot afford to assume to assume that you know V'ahavta and I know V'ahavta, and we know what
Well,
it
the
means.
balance has shifted, especially that the schools are becoming much more progressive in terms of very much emphasizing the academic, the cognitive, the thought process, and much more or less having a balance between the thought and the emotion. So there's that imbalance where you could have a superstar student who gets great marks and does everything right and is really heading for success. However, their social emotional battery is so low that they're being made fun of. They're being bullied. They're being called neurodivergent. And when it comes to life success, they fall off the cliff because they don't know how to relate to others, and others don't tolerate them. So going to broadening how does this curriculum help with interpersonal skills? When we talk about teenagers, there's bullying. There's that social status being in the in-group, right? When you come to boys, there are those who are athletics and those who are in that arena that don't participate in athletics, keeping up with the Joneses. And that's much more broader now today than in the past.
Is it? Oh, I think we've always had this issue. There's always
Well,
been
there's more stuff that kids need and want.
that's besides that.
There's more on the bucket list to do.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure. I'll tell you a really great story. I remember hearing it when I was in college. I think that there was a Shabbaton, it was an NCSY Shabbaton where a lot of kids are coming from non-religious backgrounds, and over the course of the year they decided that in NCSY, for wherever they were going to have a contest. They're going to learn all 39 categories of malacha, 39 different groups of work.
Work related to what can't be done on the Shabbat.
On Shabbos.
On Shabbat.
That's right.
Okay.
And they said that this is what they were going to do. And they studied all year long, all of the different, besides all the roller skating and bowling and all the different fun things that they did over the course. They would also be learning with their advisors that, the advisors would teach them all these different categories of work. And they were going to have a Shabbos big, if you would, like a spelling bee, only with Shabbos, on the afternoon of Shabbos of their regional convention of the spring, the last convention before the summer. And everyone's very, very excited, and they're all quizzing each other, and they're going. There's one kid, and he's got them all 38 out of 39. He's got it over and over and over again. One he just can't get. Right, all the other malachas, he's got the one he can't get. And he keeps going over. Kosef, I can't write on Shabbos. Kosef, I can't write on Shabbos. Kosef, I can't write on Shabbos. So they're about ready for this big malacha bee to begin. They can't find this kid. They find him hiding in the bathroom on Shabbos afternoon with a marker, going to write on his hands, Kosef, I can't write on Shabbos.
Wow. Look at the irony.
Exactly. It's sometimes like the things that are there, but we don't make the connection. And the famed Divrei Chaim of Sanz, the Sanz Aruv, they asked him.
Hasidic Rabbi in Europe.
He was a Hasidic Rabbi, a great halachic decisor as well, and he went probably to Vienna for some type of health treatment, some type of surgery. They asked him, Rabbi, what do you do? He said, I build bridges. Divrei Chaim had a limp. Right, he one leg not the same length as the other leg.
Physical deformity.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And look, he was not, the strapping young lad building bridges. So, Rabbi, what do you mean you build bridges?
Not in the literal sense.
He said that there are things in our mind and there are things in our heart. And the problem is that we don't always bridge it. We don't always bridge what's going on, what we know, and what we think, what we feel, and we experience. And part of what we're endeavoring to do is to build bridges.
This is beautiful.
To be able to draw on, what is it that I've learned? What is it that I feel? What is it that I experience? And how does all of this come together? Because it's just that. It's that when we give a curriculum that stays, as you say, just cognitive, and we have words, we have lots of words, right? We say that, we're supposed to, have joy on Pesach or mourn on Tisha B'Av, right? So people who are honest are saying, well, it's kind of hard to mourn on Tisha B'Av. What do you mean mourn on Tisha B'Av? I don't know exactly what that means.
And even in relationships,
exactly.
V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha.
How do I love a fellow? How do I love a fellow? How do I relate? How do I connect? How do I understand? If we don't talk about how these things, that's right. So so it's a beginning, and this is a beginning of a study to explore inner space, if you would.
Beautiful. Wow. And I'm so excited to know more about the actual application of, how this curriculum is going to get known and be implemented in the schools. Is there any challenge that you've encountered in developing the curriculum that bridges both the psychology and the Torah and the learning and bringing it, to practical life?
You get writer's block sometimes, you
Oh, yeah, and,
you
thank
stare
you
at
for
the
your
screen,
honesty.
you stare at the screen, you're
Right,
like,
because
okay,
this is unprecedented. It's not like you
exactly,
could just look it up in a textbook.
exactly, and you're trying to find the right text. I gave a course I ran for 2 years in Yeshiva University, comparing Hasidic thought with psychology. You can find it on YU Torah, Hasidus and Psychology.
Fascinating.
And sometimes that was the hardest prep of my week. I would sit trying to find something original where there was both a psychological theory or a practice or an intervention, and then somewhere where it matched up in Hasidic teachings. And
But
that was
isn't it exhilarating to come up with original thought? I mean, this is Chidushei Torah.
it absolutely is, but within the creative process, there's you must know there's also there also can be like blocks, and you got to say, okay, I got to go and go take a jog or have some ice cream or something because I'm staring at the screen and I just because there's a lot there, and you have to just try to find it, and sometimes
So
when you
can I
research it,
ask you if do you have a go-to of what philosophy you glean from? The Rishonim, Acharonim.
I'm very eclectic.
Ah,
I'm a
okay.
very eclectic individual,
And
so
that's great because that we benefit from that, right? From having a broader
absolutely,
perspective.
absolutely. So the there's so much, whether it's a quote from the Midrash, like we're beginning a unit on the changes that one encounters when one comes to ninth grade. So this is one of our modules, and I try to provide one Jewish text per module because we're dealing with ninth graders. The college students, can be tough. Ninth graders, we give them one Jewish text and a psychological thought to explore together in the context of each module.
So
So,
age
so,
appropriate
so
for their capacity.
precisely. So there's a quotation from Rashi. He quotes the Mechilta, the Midrash, that says, "Kol harchalar kashot." All beginnings are difficult.
Yeah, this is a journey.
So to work out what is the koshi, what is the difficulty,
Just to
how is
give
it?
voice to that,
Uh,
because who's ever asking a ninth grader, are you okay? Are you being able to manage all these different subjects and the social life and all your obligations on the longer day?
that's right. And
There's so
you're
much.
growing up and having a different opinion than your parents, and thinking, who am I going to be? And
And developing identity. Sure.
exactly.
Wow. Yeah, that's huge. So
So kol harchalar
so important
kashot.
to validate that, to know that,
Exactly.
yeah, this isn't going to be easy, but we're here for you.
That's right. And then
Amazing.
we're making space. We're making space to have a conversation.
Yeah. So given that this is novel and that it's unprecedented and that it's, this forays into the community, what would you say is a way that you could know that it's going to work, that it's successful? How do you measure success?
So whenever you write a curriculum, you always set out for where you want to go before you start going there. At the beginning of every lesson, the beginning of every curriculum, there's a concept known as spiral curriculums, in that you set out and you have a very large map of what we want students to come away with, both in terms of broad information and affect affective goals, not effective goals, but affective goals, feelings of the affect of the feelings. Where do we want to go with all of this? So that the question is, how do we assess? So there are different methods that we'll use. One methodology is, when it comes to knowledge. So there's the simple paper and pencil test. Now, within those tests, you want to be a little sneaky as well, because whenever you have a paper and pencil test, what oftentimes happens is that we forget what we're doing. A test is a measurement. right? And just like any instrument that we're going to use to measure something, we want to know, what am I doing? Like, let's not use a thermometer to try to measure wind speed, right? Let's not use uh, let's not use a thermometer to say, wow, it's pretty rainy outside. That doesn't work. The thermometer tells us what the
We're
heat
not
is.
talking about information. We're
Right?
talking about the felt sense, feelings, and
So
integration.
we have if you remember, so we have two components. We have number one, simply what are the words? We talk about how do the words mean, what do they feel. So that's another voyage entirely. If we want to talk about just concrete facts are measured, but you want to measure them in a way that you play with the question a little bit. You want them to not just to know something so that I can memorize it for a test. You want to make them think
To live it.
about it. You want to make them think about it. So when you ask them a question, don't ask them the same question that you asked them when you reviewed. Turn the question ever so slightly to make them think about what they know.
And is this going to be a quick tip for the facilitator?
That's always. It's you always want, you don't want people just to spit back information, because just recall, you come back to the kid on Shabbos with the marker. Uh, I can't read it right on Shabbos. Why? Because you told me the task is memorize as much information as you can and do whatever it takes to get there.
But we really want experiential and immersive
That's
uh,
right. So
uh,
as a result,
outcome.
so then you want them to journal. You want them to create to create portfolios, because a portfolio then makes them think about the experience and explain what this meant to me.
So this could be really creative and exciting.
Well, that's that is the name of the game. When you create a portfolio is graded then, instead of, because we think that grades are rewards. Grades are great.
It's a numbers game.
Grades are assessments.
Mm.
Grades are supposed to be measuring something. Grades are measuring.
And there's so many different ways to measure things. So this is
right?
a
How
very
did we?
unique way to measure things.
I had a professor in graduate school who ruined tests for me forever. Right? If the idea of extra credit is just like, is just ridiculous. Like, giving you extra credit on a test, that's not telling me anything. If I write a quiz and I say, okay, you know, this is the information that we're going to discuss, and you don't know what I just said. Well, there are two parts over here. Number one, maybe I didn't inspire you enough to to recall the information, or number two, maybe you didn't you didn't put in enough work trying to to gain that.
So that's the difference between busy work and work that is experiential and enduring. I could tell you that I know of a school that at the end of the year, they give them lots of fun trips just so that the students could get to know each other and have a lasting experience. And in one class, what they have to do is give a TED Talk.
Mm-hmm.
And students will prepare for months for this TED Talk because it feels cool. It feels they're getting into their own identity and they're learning how to express themselves. There's so many skills that go into a TED Talk.
That's
So it's
correct.
not just about a written test, it's about their experience and how they could show up on stage. They could feel confident in using their voice and have their uniqueness and also come up with the creative ideas. And there's so much that goes into it.
Absolutely, the ability to and which also, by the way, doesn't mean that you'll be missing out on cognitive or informational rubrics and informational goals. They need to know they need to know an area of information, so they'll know an area of information. However, they'll integrate, they'll internalize. Then they won't.
Yeah.
What's it
So
called?
now I'm thinking that the Bereishis social emotional literacy curriculum for ninth graders is not only specifically for that one class. The skills they learn could then spill over to other classes, and the facilitator will have a whole new way of approaching lessons. And this could carry over into all different aspects of the high school experience. So that's really great. And I also just want to know about what you believe today teenagers are most hungry for emotionally and spiritually. What is this curriculum offering them that really fills that gap?
So I think it's the ability to, you know, one of the big real buzzwords of what we're dealing with is what sells, in the world at large right now is podcasts. And there's a very meta joke over there, but it's podcasts. But because the idea that podcasts have over manufactured media, right, is this idea of authenticity. And now we have an entire. I mean, we've been doing this for a long time, even since the 1960s. Truth is, there's an ad campaign. I'd like to buy the world a Coke.
Mhm.
Right? If for those of you out there, go back and research this one a little bit, where they tried to harness uh, the idea of peace and love in the 1960s, late 1960s, early 70s. This idea of I'd like to try to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. So that, there's this idea of unity and wow, peace, and maybe the world's turning a corner. But then, what happens is I like to buy the world a Coke. Wait a second, what are you talking about? So that you're trying to commercialize authenticity. Now, part of what we're dealing with is that there's so many different media nowadays which are preaching, authenticity,
Well,
so to
just a
speak.
disclaimer: we are real people
We
here
are
in
real.
this
We
in
are
this
real.
podcast.
Absolutely, we are the
And-
realest of real. But but
There's nothing fake about what we're doing here.
exactly. Yeah, even the background. This is all.
This is my office.
This is right. No AI here. But
This isn't a set.
the idea though is that what appeals to kids a lot is being real. What appeals to kids a lot is authenticity. And that's what they really like, and trying to frame that and show authenticity, number one, in a Torah true way, A. And B, being able to find their own voice. Or Shlomo Freifeld, Zatzal, or Yeshiva Shayashuv used to quote Shakespeare all the time and say, "This above all else be true to thine own self." Right? This above all else to thine own self be true. To try to find the real reality, authenticity, and for us, of course,
And let's complement that with a Torah quote.
exactly. Well, that was he quoted all the time. But Soloveitchik would put it in this way, that we know that we use a lot of times. He would use a phrase in Latin, imitatio Dei, or in the Gemara's words, mahu afata, just like he is, so shall you be. So we usually think about it in terms of chesed and kindness. Where Soloveitchik also would say, just like he is unique, so too you are.
That's beautiful. You know what? And I could see where this curriculum, the social emotional literacy that is being promoted by Bereishis Foundation, is really geared towards bringing out the uniqueness of each individual so they could shine as young people, as adults. And I want to thank you so much, Rabbi Boshnack, for coming here today and sharing with us a little bit of a preview of what's to come. And for those who are interested in the curriculum for social emotional literacy, or for workshops and for teacher training, please reach out to bereishis.org and link in the bio. If you would like to find out more information, please like, share, follow, comment, and send your questions in. Looking forward to seeing you all on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m.